Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode on Windows 365 Hands-On, where I will be talking with my good friend Michael Mardahl about how to use passkeys with Windows 365. Welcome, Michael. Can you maybe tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Morten. And I'm super happy to be here in your community. I've been looking forward to it, actually. So, you sort of name dropped me here, Michael Mardahl. And I'm on the Twitter, the X. See my bird here. It's supposed to represent the old times, and I have the X there as well. So, I'm an MVP, actually a dual MVP. So I'm a Microsoft Enterprise Mobility MVP and also a Microsoft Security MVP. Um, and I've been so for the last 3 years, and I thoroughly enjoy working with technologies like Intune and Identity and Access. So that's why I'm sort of split across those two technologies.
Yeah,
Um,
and
yeah,
and that's why I'm so glad to have you here because you're like the MVP to work with identity for me. I mean, you're the identity guy that I go to when I have identity problems. So that's why I'm so glad that you can join us here on the show.
you're most welcome.
So we are going to talk about passkeys. Maybe you can just quickly tell us about what passkeys is, because maybe not everyone knows what passkeys is, because we have used some other terms in the past, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked, Morten. So today, most people probably don't know so much about passkeys because it's a relatively new term, but it's actually not a new thing. So it's sort of an alliance of all these credential gurus out there that sort of try and protect us. They have come up with a new term called passkeys, which just encompasses phishing-resistant credentials. So you might know a thing like this. It's a specifically a Yubico key, and this is called a FIDO2 key. And on it, there is a passkey, basically, that I register in all the tenants and services and whatnot that support it. So I can log in knowing that my credentials are secured on this device. Um, they come in many shapes and forms. This is what's called a physical security key. This is also one. This is from Vitan, and this is a biometric one. So it has a fingerprint reader here, while the other one is just a button basically that registers that I've touched it. And it also requires a PIN code as well. So it's a little bit from memory and not my body as you would with this one, which is reading my biometrics. Um, and these things cost money. But there's also free alternatives. If you have Windows, for example, you can use Windows Hello for Business, which is also a passkey provider. It's FIDO2 compliant, and you can register that as well. There's also apps for the mobile phone. There are different like 1Password and Dashlane and LastPass. All these password managers, they're also starting to support passkeys with that added benefit of the synchronization within those apps. So you can take it from PC to PC. You don't have to have a physical thing, or like Windows Hello is also bound to the physical PC device you have. So a lot of development is happening here. As we're recording this, Entra ID doesn't yet support it, but from January 2024, it should become public preview, so we can start doing a device-bound passkey
Oh, that's
with
cool.
the Authenticator app. So the Authenticator app will probably be the first offering from Microsoft to support these passkeys.
Yeah, and I mean, it also makes sense, like
I'm looking forward to
having
it.
it in the Authenticate app, right?
It does. That's what people have, and it's free. Well, I know there's a lot of politics around. You know, if you're using your own personal mobile phone in the office, not everybody is a fan of that. Let's not get into that discussion, please. I've had once too many customer talks around that.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that's needed now that we are basically in a cyber war, which is going on right now, and it's probably been going on for the last 2 years. But nowadays, just passwordless alone or MFA, it's simply too easy to steal. So anybody can basically create a cloud device that can steal your credentials. It's pretty easy, unfortunately. I won't say too much here because this
No,
is not
please
a
don't.
hacking
Yeah, yeah.
channel, but phishing
Yep.
resistance is important, and that's why I'm so excited to be here, Morten, because
That's why we're here. It's
yeah,
very important to talk about. And we're
it
going
is.
to configure it, we're going to use it, and we're going to see how it works. And for people that are using conditional access, might already know how to like utilize this onto different Microsoft services. But we're going to start somewhere else before we're going into the conditional access. And where's that?
Yes. The thing is, if you have a tenant where you haven't really done anything in regarding to specifically to the FIDO2 keys that I mentioned before, you have to enable an authentication policy for these. So I'll just quickly jump into that in the Entra ID. So you've been kind enough to let me into your little demo tenant here, and I'll go into the security area, and we have something called authentication methods. Now, for anybody coming in here for the first time, they'll see something about a migration happening on September 2025. That's a whole other subject I've done a lot of talks on. You know this, Morten. But for now, I'll just say this doesn't matter when we're just talking about the FIDO2 security key support in the tenant. So you have to have this enabled. I should say for all users, but you might have your own preferences for this. I just say the more secure the merrier, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, true.
let's get everybody on board with the most secure solution. If they want to use it, why not let them? So FIDO2 security key should be enabled. It's already because you're a sensible person, Morten. You already had it set up in your tenant. I was very happy when I saw this.
Yeah.
There's not much to configure here. It's basically, I would suggest if you don't already know a lot about this, then leave it at the defaults. You're basically allowing either the user to sign up themselves with the key. So if they have a physical key or another FIDO2 thing, then they can go in to the My Sign-ins portal and add that authentication method themselves. And then
Yeah,
the
and
next
one
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 is,
quick
sorry,
thing
yeah,
to mention here from my point of view is that I have some customers I've configured this to, and some of the customers, they have some specific keys that they only want to use and want to prevent the user from going out buying another key from another manufacturer and using that on their tenant. And they're actually able to restrict that with this key restriction policy, right? And it's
exactly.
very easy to set up.
Enforcing the key restriction is exactly what you're talking about. So you would need to know the specific AA GUID that that key provider is signing all their keys with, basically. So there are tools to see this, command line tools that you can download. I don't have them off the top of my mind, but this is for the security specialist anyway. So that's an easy way to get that is with the command line tools. You just Google it and you'll see the AA GUID from the keys you have, and you can simply add it here,
Yeah, and it's
and
just
that's it.
very nice to have the options, right? To control it a bit more, if you like that as an
Definitely,
IT administrator.
definitely. I'd say also the most important one is this enforced attestation, because if you turn that off, you're basically saying, well, even open source keys, which they exist, you can program your own key and make your own firmware, everything. But obviously, Microsoft will not have um, pre-approved your personal little hacker firmware for your FIDO2 open source project. So if you were doing that and playing around with that, then you would need to click this to know. Otherwise, you would never be logged in, because these attestations, as they were, is Microsoft and the FIDO2 Alliance that are basically deciding which of these AA GUIDs are pre-approved, stamped, as you will, for being logged into Entra. So
Cool.
I'm just going to jump out of here, not change anything on your tenant, and mention another thing relating to this and doing conditional access is the authentication strengths. So if you really want to just have these FIDO2 keys and not any phishing resistant key or any phishing resistant credential, basically, then you would need to go in and create your own custom authentication policy like we've done here. So we have one that says only FIDO2 security key. The default ones are multi-factor authentication, passwordless, phishing resistant. So usually I would suggest going for the phishing resistant because it encompasses more than just the key, but you're still staying very secure. Should we jump into the conditional access stuff, Morten?
Let's do that.
All right.
That's where all the fun is, if you ask me.
It is your best line of defense, in my opinion. That's your identity protection. Sorry, I was saying identity protection, but yeah, conditional access is also identity protection.
And also, if you're used to conditional access, managing that for your environment, this is not rocket science. So you just have to, we will go through setting up the policy from scratch here, and you will see it looks very similar to everything else that you're doing with conditional access. And that's actually the thing that I like the most about conditional access is the security part with it. It's just very simple to do, right? Once you know the basic of it, you can just go with the flow.
I mean, for most people, I do have customers that are struggling with this, but it is when you get to a certain size of policies, then things can get a bit hairy. But definitely, if you're a medium-sized organization, usually it's about getting to know the options in here, and then you're good to go.
Yeah.
Just using the built-in tools, like you have the what if tool that can tell you what happens if I do this or that. But for Windows 365, what I usually do is I go in and set it to my, usually I would set it for all users because I want it to apply just to the specific resources, which are the cloud apps for Windows 365. So if you go and select the actual specific apps for that, I think we can just ping pong on what those are, Morten, because I sometimes have a hard time remembering. I know there's like this Windows cloud login, right?
So yeah, there is the
new one,
Windows
right?
Cloud login. Yeah. So the Windows Cloud login is actually a new cloud app that has been added. And the Windows Cloud login is handling the single sign-on process. So when the user authenticates with single sign-on, that's the app that is handling that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, before that app, there was another app called Microsoft Remote Desktop. We also have to add that in right now because there's currently going on a transition where the Microsoft Remote Desktop is being removed. Now, in order to get the Windows Cloud Login app, you have to being registered on an Azure subscription for the Microsoft Desktop Virtualization, I think it's called.
Yeah, I remember this. That's because if you're in a tenant that maybe an older one, or you haven't done this already or used AVD, then that specific app might not be there, right? Because I remember seeing that in a customer side where they didn't have this, and I basically went into just a random one of their subscriptions because they weren't using AVD. They didn't have anything in any of their subscriptions related to these technologies.
Exactly.
But it built or registered the app within the tenant.
Yep. And you can just go and unregister the app once you have done that in the subscription. It doesn't really matter. But that's how you get it in your conditional access as it is right now. Now, there are also two more apps that we need to add, Michael. And the one, or the first one is the Azure Virtual Desktop. You might also see it as Windows Virtual Desktop in your tenant, depending on when you're starting to use the AVD service. But as you can see here on this tenant here is AVD. And this handles the connection from your physical client to the gateway service. And then we also have the Windows 365 cloud app. And this handles all of the end user actions that are being used, that the end user are initiating from their local PC to their cloud PC. So you could imagine that you can split all of these up into different conditional access policy and do some, I don't know, cool stuff with that. But the general recommendation from us here is just align all these apps here. Maybe not in a single condition access policy, but they should be under the same conditions
Yeah,
overall. Yeah,
I'm lazy, Morten. I put them in one
yeah,
single
that's
one.
fine.
I'll be
Just do
I'll be
that.
honest with you,
Yeah,
but I see places where they've sort of just thought, oh, there's one called Windows 365. We'll just add that. That must be it,
yeah, that's not enough.
and then some things don't act the way they sort of expect it to, or they're not getting prompted for the extra authentication at the right times. So
Yeah,
I think that's why we're just saying, dump it all in here. It'll of course also affect your AVD if you have AVD, right? So
true. Yeah, it will.
just be mindful of that, or then you would have to filter out certain conditions if you want to differentiate between those two. And
Yeah,
that's probably what you were talking about with, you can create different conditional access policies for each of these if you have certain scenarios. Obviously, you and I can't sit and come up with 500 different enterprises scenarios for how they want to handle these
no,
sign-ins and what cases. So we're being a bit vague here, but the purpose is just showing you these things and sort of
yeah,
enlightening what are they all about, right?
exactly. So now we have target the environment, our Windows 365 environment in all sort of way. Um, I think we need to choose a
We're,
authentication method right now, right?
exactly, and that's
Yep.
why I was showing the authentication strengths before, because if you notice, if you were just clicking require multi-factor authentication for these services, which is quite normal, right?
Yep.
You've noticed that Microsoft is starting to say, hey, please consider testing the new require authentication strengths. So they're sort of saying, hey, now I don't know this specifically, but I'm thinking they're getting rid of this button sooner or later because it is completely redundant when you have this one as well. Because the first thing that happens when you click this one is that it's selecting multi-factor authentication.
Mm.
But with the added benefit of you being able to also do your custom auth policy, right? Um, and you have all these options, basically making it better than just requiring multi-factor authentication. So in this case, now we're playing around here. We're talking about passkeys and FIDO2 specifically here. Um, I would just use the phishing resistant MFA if I was a first time customer starting to work with this,
Yeah.
because then you also have the Windows Hello credential available, which is I'll be honest, Morten, I just love Windows Hello for Business. And I'll be even more honest and say I'm on my Mac right now. I'm a terrible person,
Yeah.
but this is the situation we're in. This sort of last minute recording thing, and yeah, this is where it was. So I'll click select here and create that policy, and now you will not be able to use anything in your Windows 365 without using your security key mode. So I hope you have it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're kind of screwed, right?
Yeah. But you forgot something. You forgot to turn it on.
Did I?
Yeah.
But I was just trying to be nice.
You have to turn that policy on.
It's in report mode. That's how we start things, because we shouldn't screw around with these things. We need to test them first, right?
True. True.
Now we're just doing a lab thing, but usually I like to go into report only mode and see what happens, because I don't know, Morten, if you heard about this little insights and reporting thing you can click on. I don't
Yeah,
know if
I
that's
heard
set
about
up
it.
in your tenant. It's not set up though. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
but it's not really relevant for your demo lab, of course. But it's a really cool way of sending the data from conditional access to log analytics and analyzing on what's happening with all these report only policies instead of having to go into each individual sign in. And I'm just mentioning this because now that we're talking about going towards a phishing resistant and passwordless future here, securing our environment. Now we're specifically talking Windows 365, right? But I'm shamelessly gonna also just pull in every other authentication that companies are doing, and say, hey, you need to test these passkeys with everything else you're doing, because it's gonna, sooner or later, that's gonna be the standard, right?
Yeah.
We're no longer going to be saying, hey, you have to enable MFA. We're going to be saying, hey, you must use passkeys, basically, because otherwise you're screwed. I'm guessing it's just a matter of time. Um, things are happening so fast. Copilot, anybody heard about that? That's
No, what's
stuff like
that?
the AI is just, it's just going to help both bad guys and good guys, act faster with all this hacking and circumventing security and also building security.
Yeah.
So we in the middle here as IT admins basically need to take the safest road we can do. I know security and what do you call it? Security and productivity don't always go hand in hand, but I feel it really does with passkeys. I think it's super helpful for enabling productivity as well as being secure. So
Yeah.
it's not a hassle logging in with a passkey. I'd say it's easier than logging in with a password actually. So
Sometimes it is. It can be. If you do enough user awareness, it can be. But Michael, while you go in there and enable the policy and put a user on that, I just want to quickly mention that for people having multiple cloud policies, you have to be aware of we're setting this conditional access policy on the user level. So if you have multiple cloud policies, which you can, it will affect on both of the cloud PCs. So I, for example, have customers that have multiple cloud PCs for different kind of scenarios that they're working on. What I typically hear from customers that, well, either they will like to use passkeys for, all the users, or they have a specific group of users that they want to target. Maybe they have access to some kind of system that is very important, and that's why they want to use stronger authentication method on those users. But just have that in your mind when setting up this. There's no way on like excluding one of your cloud PCs on this. It's all in for one user. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, cool. So Michael, now we have configured it, we have enabled it. So let's go and take a look at how it is from the end user side.
Now I'm inside the Windows 365 portal. If people weren't familiar with it, this is the URL. Windows365.microsoft.com. And I'm on this untrusted device. It's my Mac here in the Edge browser. So I'll click open in browser and we'll expect that I get a prompt, right, to sign in.
Yeah, you should. You should be getting a
Yeah.
prompt here.
And this is, of course, expected. So we'll see. I'll put in my security key and I'll say other ways to sign in just because I haven't set that as a preferred method in your tenant. So now I have the key in and I have the YubiKey, so I have to touch it and enter my PIN code. So if it was the other fighting key that I showed you, it would just be biometrics and that would be it. So I'll say I'll allow this login, stay sign in, yes, and it should sign me in all the way through. Whereas if I didn't have SSO, I would get prompted as well when we reach the desktop sign in, right? And actually, now if I had chosen to go forward with my password there, it would have denied my access because of
Yeah.
the policy. So just in the spirit of not wasting everybody's time too much, we'll just say that's what's happening, right? But that is what would happen if you had enforced that policy as we have. And it's interesting how Microsoft is doing these sign-in handlings because preferably they would just remove the option, so you could only select the phishing resistant. But it's
Yeah.
this is how it works, and I don't think there's a reason to complain about it. But I have heard people ask me about that, just completely removing the other options.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing it'll come down the line, so you could completely disable passwords, for example.
Now, it's also very important to mention that you're using the web browser to log in here, and we can all see that you are able to, use passkeys to authenticate and log in. You're also able to use it on other types of devices, like Windows devices, of course. You have Android coming soon. with the new Windows app. You have iOS, iPad OS support.
The
Um,
iPhone, as I mentioned, yeah, that's what I'm
yeah,
using a lot.
yeah. So it's nice that it's supported for all devices or almost all devices, and just makes the end user experience really simplified and nice that the end users don't have to think about which device can I use for signing in because everything is supported.
Exactly, and they can bring their own keys, Morten.
Yeah,
Now I'm talking physical keys, of course. If a user had a physical key already, you know, that's great. Let them use their own keys if if you want to do bring your own key, because it is basically a very personal key. I try to tell my customers if they go out and buy, for example, a Yubico or a Fighting key or some other brand, um, then don't expect to get it back. Basically, give it to the
mm,
user. Let them use it for whatever they like. They can use it for their Amazon login, their Google, whatever, because it's it's a personal key, and you want them to get familiar with it. You want them to use it every day, basically, so they become secure in all the ways they interact with things, um, and log in.
yeah,
So why not just give it to them? I mean, if
yeah,
you buy them in bulk, they're not very expensive. They are very expensive if you just buy a few. I'll be honest about that.
yeah.
But there
It's
are
definitely
many
cheaper to
different.
buy them in bundles, right?
Yeah, a
Um,
thousand at a time or something. That's much better.
yeah, yeah. So I just want to have some closing thoughts here
Oh,
because
you didn't give me a
what?
license for our office, Morten.
No, I
That's
didn't give you a license for Office. You have to
I
pay for
can't.
that yourself. A important thing to talk about here when talking about authentication is what about the in-session authentication? So currently, in-session authentication, and what I mean about that is that you
That's what I
authenticate
just
from your
did. Yeah.
physical client, right, into your cloud PC. But now you're in your cloud PC. How do you authenticate within that? Are you able to use your passkey to authenticate to different systems? And the short answer here is yes and no.
Yeah, yeah. Just
No,
the modern. This is what I'm showing right now because it's
yeah,
brilliant, right? I'm sorry, I'm jumping the gun here, but this is. I'm just a user basically of this platform, right? So if if I log in every day to my different Windows 365 devices, I am using that FIDO key. I am just jumping in like I just showed, and I'm starting the web portals, etc. And the service itself is passing through my credentials all the way, so I don't need to have that key uh, in the computer anymore. Actually, now I could have pulled it out right after I saw the desktop or after I'd done my sign in actually, and the
yeah.
authentication token is still valid all the way through. But yeah, we were talking about this, and you're saying there's some scenarios where it doesn't work, and I'm not the Windows 365 expert, so I'm really all ears on that part.
Yeah, so there are in some scenarios where that doesn't work. So if you have some, you know, if you require a new authentication within your Cloud PC session, like you want to access, for example, a SharePoint site, and you require another passkey authentication for that, um, you're not able to pass that key through every device that you have. So that is only supported if you're coming from a Windows device and logging into a Cloud PC, which obviously is a Windows device also. And they have to support specific version of Windows. We'll drop all the links down in the description so you can just go in there and check it. Um, so when you're trying to authenticate another time, like you just showed, you can definitely go into your portal.office.com and that will perfectly work. But if you have to re-authenticate within your session, you're not able to do that
Oh
from your
yeah,
Mac
I
OS
have
device.
I have actually experienced this a few times if I've gone away too
Yeah,
long and it sort of locked me out if there was a policy doing that. And then I
exactly.
just close the window and I sign in from the
Yeah,
beginning again. Basically, like this, I would leave the window and I'd just say open in the browser again,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then it would pass me through. So I've been just subconsciously doing that to get around that issue, not even considering it.
yeah.
So it's great to have this dialogue with you, more than just sharing your insights on on Windows 365 as an administrator for that, and me as a basic user of your great community product here. Obviously, not Windows 365 is not a community product, but you know, I look at your blogs and it's good stuff.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you so much, man. It was fun having you here, and I definitely hope that we can do something like this more in the future. Also covering maybe other topics than just Windows 365, but we will see. We will see. It's always fun having you here and talking with you, my friend. So that was it for us today. Using Passkey with Windows 365. We hope that you enjoy it. We'll drop all the links down in the description below. And until we see you next time, take care.